Alex and Melissa had built a life together over the course of 8 years, a relationship that Alex often described with a playful mix of humor and nostalgia, likening it to a lighthearted teenage crush that had somehow matured into something deeper. By the time Alex celebrated his 30th birthday, Melissa was 27, and together they had welcomed their first child, a son who had recently turned 3. Their little boy was now filled with the boundless excitement that comes with starting preschool, ready to embark on new adventures away from home. As Melissa prepared to return to her job after her maternity leave, she found herself stepping back into a world that had dramatically shifted during her time away. The arrival of a new director, Peter, had altered the dynamics of her workplace. From their very first meeting, Melissa was captivated by Peter's charm and charisma. He was nearly a decade her senior, and his confident demeanor struck a chord with her. After months of being at home with her son, the thrill of adult interaction was intoxicating, especially with someone who exuded such appeal. Flattered by Peter's flirtation, Melissa engaged with him playfully, navigating what she thought were harmless boundaries in a game of mutual attraction. However, it soon became clear that Peter had little regard for those boundaries. Over the course of the next month, their flirtation escalated. What began as teasing glances and playful banter soon evolved into something more intense and dangerous. One fateful day, Peter called Melissa into his office, locked the door behind her, and made his intentions unmistakably clear. To her surprise, rather than feeling compelled to resist, she experienced an unexpected thrill, even as she pretended to push back against his advances. From that moment on, each encounter with Peter left her feeling flustered and unable to meet his gaze, all while maintaining a facade of professionalism in front of their colleagues. In public, Peter adopted a stern demeanor, but behind closed doors, he found ways to touch her, indulging in a perilous game of power and attraction that left Melissa both exhilarated and terrified. One evening, after most of their colleagues had left the office, Melissa found herself alone with Peter in his office. As he stood by the window smoking, she hurriedly finished dressing, her heart racing with a mix of guilt and excitement. Sensing her inner turmoil, Peter addressed her abruptly, saying, "Hey, don't get upset about me being rough with you in front of everyone. I figure as much. You're paranoid about anyone finding out." His casual mention of his wife struck Melissa like a dagger. The reality of her situation washed over her. She had a husband and child waiting for her at home. Hearing Peter speak about his own spouse so nonchalantly felt like a betrayal on top of betrayal. Gathering her belongings in silence, she felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her. As the late nights at work became more frequent, Alex, who had never shown jealousy before, began to voice his concerns. He noticed Melissa's increasing absences and started calling her throughout the day to verify her whereabouts. Frustrated by what she perceived as his intrusive behavior, Melissa snapped at him during one call, insisting that he should be more concerned about their son. This led to a spiral of arguments, with tension escalating between them. On particularly tough days, she would break down in tears at the office, only to be met with Peter's scolding remarks in front of their peers. Feeling overwhelmed, she often escaped to the bathroom, humiliated, while her colleagues offered sympathetic words, completely unaware that she was the architect of her own chaos. One day, after yet another confrontation with Peter, Melissa felt suffocated by the pressure of her situation and refused to stay late as he requested. The weight of her marital issues and the toxic dynamic with Peter felt unbearable. Peter, surprised by her defiance, moved closer to her, his voice a low whisper that sent chills down her spine. "You don't have the option to say no to me," he said, his tone laced with menace. When she shot back defiantly, demanding to know what he would do, he coldly replied, "I'll tell your beloved husband everything, every single detail, including that little birthmark you have in a rather private place." His cruel confidence shattered her illusion of control, leaving her feeling as if the ground had given way beneath her. Panic rose in her chest as she fought to maintain her composure while he walked away, leaving her feeling like a ghost of her former self. Her phone buzzed with Alex's calls, but she declined to answer, planning to text him later. Entering Peter's office, she was confronted by a man who believed he could manipulate her through intimidation and blackmail, a stark contrast to the initial allure she had felt. Meanwhile, Alex was consumed with worry, imagining the worst as he made his way to Melissa's workplace. He feared discovering a man he didn't recognize, an image that fueled his anger. Memories of a faint bruise on her shoulder, which he had dismissed as an injury from a heavy gym bag, flooded his mind, leaving him feeling betrayed and helpless. Upon arriving at the security desk, he announced his presence and headed upstairs, each step weighing heavily on him as dread settled in his stomach. When he reached her office, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Her belongings were still there, her phone, her purse, but there was no sign of Melissa. Straining to listen, he caught the sound of muffled voices coming from a slightly ajar door at the back office. His heart racing, he kicked the door open, and what he saw sent shockwaves through him. Melissa was perched on a desk, and Peter stood too close for comfort, a scene that ignited a primal rage within Alex. Without thinking, he charged at Peter, fists flying, desperate to protect his wife from the betrayal laid bare before him. In the chaos that ensued, Melissa struggled to separate them, wrapping her arms around Alex in a futile attempt to pull him away. But when he finally looked at her, he saw the evidence of her distress. Smeared mascara, tear-streaked cheeks, and a face that spoke volumes of her shattered state. The drive home was thick with unspoken words and resentment. Alex dabbed at his swollen lip, nursing the wounds he had received from Peter during the scuffle, while thoughts of Melissa filled him with disgust and betrayal. All he wanted was for her to disappear from his life, while Melissa longed to curl up in his arms, to beg for forgiveness and explain her choices. Despite her heartfelt pleas and cries for reconciliation, Alex made the heart-wrenching decision to file for divorce, resolute in his choice as Melissa promised that she would change and that it would never happen again. The painful reality of their situation compelled her to resign from her job, and rumors about her affair began to spread like wildfire throughout the office. In the aftermath, Melissa clung to her young son, the one bright spot in her life, even as everything else crumbled around her. Night after night, in the solitude of her thoughts post-divorce, Melissa found herself reflecting on her choices and the life she had lost. It was only after Alex cut off all contact that she began to truly understand her mother's old adage, "You never appreciate what you have until it's gone." In the quiet moments, all that remained were her tears, a bittersweet reminder of the love she had taken for granted and the family she had risked everything for in a misguided pursuit of fleeting thrills.